What up guys, it is Justice here, and this is a video notification of a future update that is going to inevitably be coming into the game now, which will evolutionize PvM in its own small way. The idea came from Taylor, and it was a Runelabs suggestion about removing boss immunities. This Runelabs idea has been ninjured, but do not be tamed by that word ninjured. The ninja team will not be working on this. It will be relayed to the combat experts, probably most likely Mod Chris L and his team. That has been confirmed by Mod Kelpie on the forums. I will leave all the relevant links in the description below. I'm just going to get right into the idea now, and feel free, I'd love to hear your comments about this, whether you support it or you don't support it, or what you're excited about, how you think this will affect PvM in the future. Feel free to comment down your thoughts below. This idea in fact reached 800 supporters, which put it in the top 3. Now essentially, do you want to make deflect and leech curses, for example, and poison potions more relevant? Well, if the answer is yes, then this idea is for you. If you remember my video around Amulet of Souls versus Blood Necklace, I talked about reflect immune bosses because it has a large influence when you compare those two items. There are 3 categories to consider within this update, which Evil Lucario has kindly forum posted, and I've got pure permission from Evil Lucario to mention all of this within the video. We've got 3 categories: Reflect, Poison, and Leeches. Reflect bosses, just to name a few, are Nex, Virago, Barrows, Rise of the 6, and Araxor. Feel free to pause the video at this point to go through the full exhaustive list, which is on the forums, and again, more could potentially be added to this. Poison, we've got Metallic Dragons, Nex, Virago, Rise of the 6, and Araxor, and Leeches we'll get onto in a second. What does all this mean, and why is it so important within PvM scenarios? Well, there are so many different items and different factors within the game that do not influence PvM or high level PvM in the current state of the game, because it's outdated, and these bosses are immune. All of these categories, the bosses are immune to all of those different types of damage outputs. Okay, so bosses that are reflect immune, such as those on screen, deflect prayers will not work on these bosses, and by that I mean if you're a lower level monster within the game at the moment, if you've got curses and you're praying melee, there's a chance that some of that damage which you absorb will be inflicted back onto the opponent. Another example of this refers to the threshold defensive ability Reflect, where when using a shield, 50% of damage taken is absorbed, the other 50% is reflected back onto the opponent. That does not work on reflect immune bosses. That is what Evil Lucario and 800 other people who supported this idea want to get changed. Bosses such as Metallic Dragons, Virago, Barrows, Rise of the 6, they are all immune to poison. However, bosses like Cowfight King, for example, are not immune to poison, and Corporal Beast, so you can get additional damage output via different methods such as weapon poison. And leeches again, such as your curse prayers, is probably the simplest way of doing it. Prayers which have a leech effect, which drain the enemy's accuracy, for example, or damage output, these do not work on the bosses shown on screen. And the argument here is that all of this good content is within the game, but you cannot be used. And if you guys have any other examples which you want to consider, write down in the comments down below of any other different leech effects, poison scenarios which you could think of, and any deflect damage items within the game that you feel could really be useful here if this update comes out where certain bosses are no longer immune. I like the suggestion here made by Bloody Zark, where he basically states that the Ninja team feel like this is a big update, and if it was going to be a Runelabs update, they'd only be able to release it for one boss. Now, what Bloody Zark suggests here is that they release it in patch notes, so whenever they've got a boss ready, starting with the toughest boss, such as let's say Virago, when they've got that one sorted, they should release that into the game with regards to a patch note, and then just patch each boss simultaneously. Essentially, to summarize, poison, ancient curses, and reflect damage, for example, as you can see on screen at low level monsters such as Zamorak, this is Zamorak hard mode, due to the low life points cap, it's really not that useful here. People want this existing content reworked and balanced to work at high level PvM. They are extremely outdated because all the new bosses that have came into the game, they're all immune to these types of effects. I suppose the original thoughts referred to the risk of making the bosses too easy, and that is a drawback, so they need to consider it to be done on a case-by-case basis, which moves on to Mr. GW's input around this idea. He gives a few examples of what it could look like, and these are really great examples of different ways to think about how existing content in the game can be utilized. So for example, Corporal Beast will still be immune to familiars because it eats them, right? Poison immunity. Virago and Rise of the Six would be immune to poison due to their non-organic body, but then deflect damage would still work on them and leech effects would still work. Araxor and Araxi would be vulnerable to poison as well, but each hit might be able to increase its enrage by 1% because it will draw on the power from the poison. And Leech immunity. Nex is a Zaros follower, so Leech deflect effects from cursors would not work. Deflects from abilities, items and vengeance, however, would still work. Runescape 3 has been made to be able to have content like this in the game, to be able to choose different items, different gear setups in relation to the boss you're killing to make PvM so much more in depth and exciting. It adds a different dynamic to the game, and that's why it should be by case process, so that we can all understand when a new boss gets updated, we can learn it, we can understand it before moving on to the next one, because it's going to be a lot of content to take on board. Jagex should not make the same mistake as they did with EOC, dumping a whole load of change on us at the same time all at once, which a lot of people didn't like. This is going to impact high level PvM greatly here. It's existing content being reworked into high level PvM, which we should have the chance to learn gradually in a case by case basis. This is the perfect type of update to put on a beta server to allow players to test out as well before it going in game. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you did, be sure to give it a like, and I'll leave all relevant information in the description below. And I strongly recommend for you to comment down below your thoughts around this update after reviewing all the information and having a good debate around it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on my next video or live stream.